Good afternoon. It's Shirley with Spirit of Matter. And this episode is basically concerning various events that we see around the world. And I wanted to talk about a core concept. It's a core concept that is both spiritual, medical, biological, societal, political, and religious, even religious. So, as for the day, the ascendant is Saturn rule. Saturn is in 0° Pisces, opposing Lilith, Lilith in Virgo, on Regulus. The midheaven is in 9° Sagittarius with Jupiter in the 4th house, 13 degrees, Moon in 12 degrees, Virgo, co-present with Lilith and Venus. And the moon is trining Jupiter, so I'm talking about the core concept. And the Venus is still sextile in Mars, which is good because Mars is separating from the square to Pluto. Mars is on the anaretic degree of Libra. Mercury on the 11th degree of Libra, Sun 17th degree of Libra, and the Sun is opposing Chiron in Aries, which is good because we are addressing a wound around an identity, sense of self, consciousness, neurodivergence, and basically associating the generation of identities and people to eugenics. So what is biodiversity? Okay, biodiversity, for example, if you want to grow a forest, then you want to know what trees work with what trees and what shrubs go with them and what flowers go with them. And so you plant basically an ecosystem, and it is the diversity that make the plants more healthy. So they grow with ease, right, with relative ease, and it's actually being exposed to the various plants system, and that brings in a fertile soil, first of all, and it also brings in the resilience. And another place we see that biodiversity, if you love dogs like me, I love dogs. And when you buy a dog, even if you buy, let's say, a golden or a canine, you understand that it's always mixed with another dog breed. And the reason is because, yes, we like, the leaf, the sweetness of certain breeds, and, the head tilt and so, but what we want is for the dog to be healthy, and for that we actually need biodiversity. Okay, we need basically to intermix a couple of species. Okay, this is why animals will always give you good health. If you are in good connection with plants, with animals, you will know things that people who are not in connection, even though they may go to academia, they may go to this, they may go to that, they might not be in touch with the actual practice of reality, so they don't know that. So it works in the flora and fauna, it works in our digestive system. For example, and this is a very good story about colonialism, because when British people colonized India, they got from them tea, they got from them shampoo. Shampoo is an Indian word, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and still they considered the Indians dirty. And you ask yourself, how come? Well, the thing is, if you travel to a very far away land, and even if that land is very clean, if you've been in India, you know that they are very hygienic. So they are having different bacteria, and if you're not used to the bacteria, you may feel like you had food poisoning because your stomach is not used to it. And this is why it's also important to travel, to try different foods and from people who come from different customs, different cuisines. And people who eat different cuisines and are exposed to multicultural cooking and multicultural, and the herbs and fruits themselves are coming from biodiverse ecosystems, then these type of people will basically, they eat healthier and their intestines are less sensitive. But then when we meet people that are from all kinds of cultures, and we understand that what we thought is clean and what they think is clean is two different things, and both are clean. But we understand a lot more things, and now we already begin to enrich our language and then the nervous system and our belief system. Okay, and I want to tell you the story that I really love to tell about Maimonides. So Maimonides basically was a Jewish scholar, philosopher, and he was in exile. And in exile, he met people who were Sufi Muslim, and they enriched each other with the conversation. So a lot of things that we consider pillars of Judaism are affected and affecting Sufi Muslim. And even when I was in Netherlands, the Jewish community said to me, "Oh, you can go to a mosque, but not to church." Although, of course, I went to the Oranje Kerk, which is a beautiful place and has the pride flag on it, and was very, very proud. I heard the Sunday Mass there, so of course I did go also to church. But the thing is that the way that that Judaism has embraced these Sufi Muslim traditions that have also to do with medicine, and the medicine for the Muslims and for the Jews, when you talk about the foods and the hygiene habits, is very, very similar. Even halal and kosher are quite similar. And you see how those habits, those things, they affect the health, they affect the food, and they affect the costumes that we have, how we keep our traditions, and they are basically a result of an encounter of various cultures, various religions, not just various, Judaism and Islam, it's various streams of Judaism and various streams of Islam encountering each other, discussing each other, and this happened unfortunately through exile. Now, if we do that in time of peace, then we are healthier, okay? And biodiversity, when you begin to embrace biodiversity, also understand the meaning of traveling and how beautiful it is to both support your local communities and to be able to freely travel and to be able to have mixed relationships, mixed marriages. For example, for Israelis, people say, "Oh, Israelis are so beautiful women, most beautiful in the world," and they don't say it only about Israelis. And the reason is because a lot of the people were like the Jews were in exile. And so you had Jews in Europe, you had Jews in Africa, you had Jews in the Middle East, you had Jews in Russia, okay, Jews in Canada and America. And all together, people met, let's say they came to Israel and then they started meeting each other. So you would have people who have ancestors from North Africa and from Ukraine and from Netherlands, and some of that goes into the bloodline, some of that, of course, there's their parents and so on. But if you ask yourself, what makes these people so beautiful is basically the mixed bloodlines that go into that, and also in many cases make people more healthy. Yes, there are genetic diseases that you have to check for, but other than that, mostly if you want to be a healthy person, it's best for you to marry even with bloodline that's a bit distant from your bloodline, okay? And when you have this divergence, then you're constantly refreshing, you're constantly rejuvenating, and that creates a longevity, okay? Naturally. So this whole process of being healthy is actually joyful, it's actually beautiful, it's actually peaceful. because you learn that there's more than one way to do things, and then you adopt. People who travel around the world, they adopt. How the Indians eat with their hands, and they have this whole sensual experience that is good for the digestion, or they can adapt how the Germans walk with with those Birkenstocks that correct your feet structure, and they can walk for miles and miles and miles. And then after you walk so much and you just take a walk for 20 kilometers or something, then you can have a bit of a beer or a bread or borscht. It's not that terrible because you already went so far. So there are all kinds of habits that you can embrace into your life that make you a healthier person. And the way to do that is actually very joyful. It's to encounter those people that are different to you, okay? And also discover many things that are more similar than you imagined in many cases. So, what is eugenics? And eugenics basically is from the myth of trying to create an Übermensch, okay? Übermensch is basically a myth that there are people who are super people, okay? In astrology, I associate that with the presence of Aries actually in Pisces. And then people try to go for it when Aries was in Aries and try to make the Übermensch. So what do they try to do? They try to purify the race, okay? And if you know social Darwinism, basically the belief that the species, basically what species do, they adapt themselves. Yes, they do have all these changes, they adapt themselves, but the social Darwinism is a belief that we now know is false, that the people who purify the race, okay, who don't intermix, don't do the biodiversity, don't meet with other people, don't grow the nervous system, that these people will be the Übermensch. And you understand, of course, how silly this idea, how unsuccessful, because this creates degenerative neurological diseases. This creates sensitive intestines, this creates allergies, this creates a difficulty in communication, okay? Speak with a person, they just have a different opinion to you. You're like, oh my God, this is so frightening, this is so scary. And of course, if people reacting in this way and fear, to lose themselves in other cultures, you will not lose yourself, you will only regain love for your traditions and integrate things is good. And the thing is that when people were looking to do eugenics, then it led to all kinds of policies and all kinds of ways to talk about, people, they tried certain things, and some things were smarter and some things are more stupid. And eugenics is one of the more stupid. And the thing is that people tried at that time to try to portray the physique of the Übermensch, okay? How does the Übermensch look like? And every tribe and every culture would have a different idea, of course, right? But they thought that to reach this, you have to purify the race. And you have to not associate with other races. And eugenics is very close to, and the way that this is done is also hurting fertility. And the very, that is not the best part of humanity. And a lot of the atrocities that we see, even still today, are very, very closely tied to eugenics. So if you pay attention and you listen in the media where people talk about a group of people with association to the level of intelligence, if they are clean, if they are, how should I say, yeah, the symmetries, okay, the physique symmetries. Unfortunately, in colonialism, people were very much paying attention to these things, and they were dehumanizing people. Okay, they were looking at the proportions of the person, try to look at the skull and try to think, oh, you know, is this an Ubermensch? And this is not only white people. Okay, you must understand this too. It's a perception, and what we get with this is basically degeneration. Okay, and it's important to us to understand that we want to be healthy. Okay, if you want a healthy doggy, anybody who has a dog, okay, ask anybody who bought a dog. um, well, people say the best is to adopt, but let's say you bought a dog, you always want them to be mixed. Okay, ask who are the most beautiful people. They usually are not what people call purebred. They usually are mixed. Okay, you ask, you know, even if it is again, not that we want to pay too high standards of beauty, but you will see that there are different types of things that there are so many types of beauties, and you will see that those that your eyes drawn to, usually it is mixed people. It's a person that have a couple of bloodlines in them, and it looks so beautiful and attractive. They draw you in because there's so much diversity there. Okay, and it's very healthy. It's very enriching. You know, you kind of feel like you will be almost better off with this person. Maybe they will be more tolerant of you because they have it in them to adapt without losing themselves. So we have this story that we are now growing, and we see that what was growing, let's say, only one type of crop due to our agriculture. And it looked comfortable, okay? It looked like, okay, I have this much acre, I put these plants here, those plants there, those plants there. And if you were really intelligent and you would switch them up every season, and you can Google on YouTube how to switch your crops, in ancient tradition, to switch your crops each year so that you don't unnerve the soil. But you understand that when people were growing only this type of crop here, that type of crop there, and it was not thinking about an ecosystem, then plants began to be sensitive, and the soil itself, okay, because the plants began to be, if you're potatoes, so many cultures are fed on potatoes. Irish people, they went a couple of generations on potatoes and milk. And when you understand you have a disease in your potatoes, you might fear starvation, so you try to find a solution, and people would do pests. And the pesticides, even if the pesticide is from nature, because it is so concentrated, it still interferes with the body. Can you imagine? Not even something processed too much, but even something that you take from nature, you extract it very potently, and that can still be causing damages on the long run to the soil and to your body. But when you grow a couple of crops together, then the soil is richer and is more enriching, and the crops themselves, they begin to be more resilient. Okay, now we have to build soil for that. But this is very, very possible. And people who do such work, whether it's food forests or gardens or farms that work with such ecosystems, they flourish, they thrive. And you know, I even looked at their feet. Sometimes I'm interested because I'm aligning my own feet structure. And usually you would see they walk with these either shoes that separate the feet, or they walk barefoot and the toes are really separated. You can see it if you look. If the toes are separated, it means that your shoulders are in place, your eyes are clearer, your ears are clearer, and your mind and heart is clear, and your thyroid is clearer. okay, which is a pandemic in the West, because we crunched our feet into such a position where it's like a triangular shape, and it's very, very not healthy for us. Okay, sometimes we do things that this doesn't work so much, and it used to signify class, but now you actually see farmers that are working with these pointed shoes that are actually not good for their toes. Okay, you can still design a beautiful, beautiful boot, and just make sure you have a place for the toes to spread. And maybe some of you would need, yeah, I'm talking to you Americans, maybe some of you would need to spread your toes in some way and realign your feet if your toes are suffering from that. And you can still do the great design, but make sure it's healthy, especially if you walk on these feet, if you actually work your land on these, boots, then that is very important. This is a blue ocean. Like, if somebody's starting a shoe business like this, I want to be in there, okay? I want to be invested. Like, I work for your business, because that's totally a blue ocean. I haven't seen it done, and that's like, wow, this is going to change so much things when people start doing this. So more about this topic of biodivergence versus eugenics. We talked about food allergies, we talked about the nervous system, and we talk about this discussion that people begin to describe people according to their intellect or how pure they are as a species. This is eugenics thought, okay? This is eugenics thought. It's not the purity of the race that make it beautiful, but actually the mixing of bloodlines, okay? Willing the consensual, okay? Willing consent is so important, because this is how your hormones get to be activated, and how you get to flourish, and how you get to bloom. When people do willing consent, they are more, open. They're more open. they're more nice to be around. So this is important practice. So you see that when people have this kind of mixing in the bloodlines, it's not that you won't meet some jokes or some traditions, but it's actually those things that make it lighthearted. And you can really differ culture from culture, and you say, okay, this habit I like in my culture, this habit I don't like in my culture. Maybe I will change that. And that comes not by forcing or educating someone, but the person tries this and try that and say, okay, this I like, this I don't like. If you see the shorts of people from Africa, whether it's Nigeria or Uganda, and I don't know why so many countries in Africa, but I see it. Not all of them, but a lot of them have this kind of a sarcasm. And there are these videos where they joke about what other people think about people who are living in Africa, and they totally poke at all of our prejudice, because some of us look at this to see, okay, what have they preserved from the tradition that I can learn as a person who lives in another tradition. And then you see they're telling you, oh yeah, when we want internet we talk to the gods, and I'm like, this is not helpful. But we talk about I think the toothbrush, okay? There was, okay, this we have this, but we prefer this. Okay, it's like we have toilet paper, but we prefer water to actually wash ourselves, right? Or we have the chair that you have with that you lean back, which is actually not good for your back. They say we have this, but then we say, but we prefer this, and they take out, and she takes a stool, okay? And then with the toothbrush, she was stick that they used to rub the teeth, and she said, yeah, we have this. It's like, no, actually, no, here we prefer the toothbrush. And this is genuine. It's not that somebody forced it on somebody. It's like, we did it like this. Oh, you're doing it better. Okay, this we adopt. This we don't like. That is how you work when you actually have diverse bloodlines around your area. Okay, so you can be proud of your tradition and proud of your heritage, and still do things that you find good from other traditions, or not do things that you don't like so much, to continue. That's the whole point of it, and that is how it's naturally coming about, um, rather than trying to educate or trying to scientifically compare, or trying to purify, to isolate and check the components. It's just not how an ecosystem works. um, and that is very crucial to understand, because if you know to identify, nobody will tell you this is eugenics, this is biodiversity. Okay, but when people do permaculture, it's biodiversity. When people would take the dog that is mixed bred, okay, not purebred, mixed bred, because they say, I want my dog to be healthy. I want my dog to be healthy. Okay, it's biodiversity. When you have those mixed couples, I really love watching mixed couples. There's this Vietnamese girl who's married to a German person, and this is like such a great such a great channel, and it enriches your life, because you will find yourself constantly refreshing, constantly challenging your nervous system, because people do things very crazy. You understand what things you do crazy in your tradition and what things they do crazy, and this is so fun. Also surrounding me, I was born to a couple that was mixed traditions. Um, and I had also a good friend that was married to a Swedish person. She's Israeli, and just trying to learn the language, just the jokes that people have, but you want to also tend to laws around raising children. Okay, because if you separate, which can happen, then you must understand the land that you're living in will always want to preserve the baby, unless it's some countries that will actually want to cast away the baby. So you need to understand what you are doing, and in general, it is good to understand where you want to live, and not just to live where the partner is, because if you live and you have children, the children stay on the land of the person who is native to the land in most countries. So just but other than that, you see how those things are even contributing to relationships, and they can make for great relationships, that even when people separate. Okay, my parents separated, but they still grew up to a lot of the stories, a lot of the jokes that kept their state for the years. So again, you see that I'm not talking about tolerance here. I'm talking about something way deeper. This is biodivergence. This is biodivergence. Okay? When you see the people are talking about, oh, well, there's these people, they are not high IQ, they are not clean, they are talking too loud. My cultural shock in Netherlands was that Netherlands allowed, if you go to the train or to the subway, they are loud. And I'm like, oh, they said Israelis are loud. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they are loud, which is nothing wrong. I was just like, oh, I didn't expect this. But if it is like, oh, these people, they talk too loud, I don't like it, or they have a different way of speech, that for some people it can sound angry, okay? Depending on the culture. I know in Germany they have it. If you talk to German from Berlin and if you talk to German from Munich, then sometimes these people will, if they speak their own, not Hochdeutsch, but their own type of German, then they might not be able to tell if a person is joking or a person is fighting. Okay? So, but when it is about, oh, these people are not intelligent, or they're not clean, or this, then you are already seeing a behavior that is eugenics. A behavior that thinks in terms of Übermensch. And what you also need to know about the Übermensch myth is that the the myth was that it's not unique to that, but there were a slave race and a master race, okay? And the slaves are basically slaves to the master race. And you see traces of this also in the great religions. And again, when you hold the scriptures, it has a historical value. Okay? It doesn't mean that you practice this in the same way in 2023. But you got to be careful when people begin to say this and people begin to think that this is true, that there are people who are not meant to be free. Also, if you look at the Masons, and you can literally YouTube the Masonic books, okay? If you look at the Masons, then they have teachings where they say not all people can be free, okay? So you must understand this is also a trace of it. And I'm not saying that they don't have great teachings. They teach the occult, they teach of the three religions. There are always good things to take from everywhere. But when you see eugenics, you understand that this is an idea that is involved in a lot of atrocities, a lot of genocides, a lot of crimes against humanity, a lot of things that are very, 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 very horrid. And of course, in slavery, you understand this is not, in slavery, black people enslaved white people. Slavery existed also in antiquity, and we understand that this notion that not all people can be free, some slaves, some masters, is very involved with atrocity. So you want to be able to understand the discourse and understand the core concept of biodiversity, which is, well-being, healthy nervous system, joy in relationships, because you have constant jokes and constant things and constant fresh point of view of the world, and eugenics, which gives you racism, which gives you feeling that people are not comfortable being around each other, and sometimes they will be friends, but this is this is something that if eugenics is strong in a certain discourse, then you see that atrocities in many cases soon follow. What is the history of atrocities? And now we're not perfect. Everybody has a little bit of both. We're not always aware of things, but just the awareness, just to put the awareness into biodiversity and to understand that even if we have eugenics patterns, sometimes in our religions or our traditions or tribal traditions, I don't know, if we understand or we see that, we understand that this is the degenerated nervous system, this is digestion problems, this is relationship problems, it's also sexual and intimacy problems, okay? Because not all people are masters and slaves, huh? Not to judge if people are kinky is okay, no problem, but not all people are, and also kinky relation does not assume that outside the kinky situation you are not equals. It's very important. So the more we tend to this, now you will know to identify. And you see, when I talk about biodiversity, I am feeling good. And I will have different accents intermixing, even in the voice, you can hear that. I'm feeling good about this idea. It makes me feel good. And my country is at war right now. But when I talk about biodiversity, I'm like, oh my God, this is it's life enriching. I think about the plants in my garden. I think about pets. I think about those interesting people, those relationships that are intermixed. And I think of the joy of joie de vivre, okay, the joy of living. Whereas when people go to the eugenics, I had such difficult energies because, very, very difficult, because I don't need to tell you the atrocities that are happening in my region right now, but in the world as well. And it's very heavy. It's very heavy. And so thinking about biodiversity is kind of bringing life back into this equation and growing life, because we came here to grow life, and we are more healthy being exposed to different people. And you see it in the medicine too. The immune system, when children are playing with nature, playing in the garden, playing in the yard, and they're exposed to different bacteria when they are young, they develop less allergies. And even, you know, what a bad thing is, Israeli people, they eat a snack called bamba, which is made from nuts. Peanuts. And there are a lot less Israeli children that have allergy to peanuts, because they have a snack that they eat that is made of peanuts. Okay, the other cultures, this thing can kill people. So look how good and how important it is to travel. So we're not talking about extinguishing, but rather exposing, adapting, nourishing. And it's not about being resilient and strong. It's even beyond that. It's about being enriched and joyous, so you have life within you. And so I invite you also, when you see things and you see those hidden signs of eugenics, when you see those hidden signs of eugenics, oh shit, yes, this is my broadcast. Oh no, yes, this is my broadcast. Okay, I need to open another page. Yeah. Then I invite you to think about the concept of biodiversity, and think about gardens, think about dog breeds, think about pets, think about those couples that you know that this one comes from here, that one comes from there, and they always have these jokes, and they always have those little things that they laugh about, that they do differently, and really enjoy it. And I invite you to think about this, and just see what it does for you when you search the things that are along the jargon of biodiversity. Okay, permaculture, okay, mixed couples. Oh my God, I love watching mixed couples. Oh my God, this is so entertaining. You feel enriched, you feel life. Okay, you're also around love, is very good. And dogs, pets, cats. Cats are always mixed, you know. You see these couples and you see two black people and all the babies are white, and you're like, how come? And they're not adopted. Like, how come? And this is so interesting, because you expose yourself to the different complexions that exist, and it's just joyous. I just find it so beautiful. It's like when you look at the painting and have a lot of colors and they blend together and have, you know, the different techniques and textures, and that's like looking at the beautiful painting that gives you joy to look at. And that's something I want to bring, and I want you to be able to conceptualize, to be able to understand, to be able to see whether this message that I'm hearing, this message that I'm receiving, is it a message of biodiversity, well-being, or is it a message of separation, eugenics, fear-provoking? And it's not that people didn't hurt people, okay? But the way to step up from that is always towards biodiversity. When you grow your crops, you try to grow one thing and you see it didn't grow all that well. When you try to grow that one thing with another thing, already it will do better. And you can see what things go better with others, okay? And that's bringing you back to life and keeping you alive in these times. in the spirit. This is what we're creating here. So I'm very, very thankful to broadcast this. And it's Jupiter hour, Mercury day. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye-bye.